We've all gone a little bit barking mad here at CapeTalk this afternoon, and that's because you may have heard some heavy breathing in the background, and we have an exceptionally special young lady joining us in studio this afternoon. Xena, the Cape Town Metro Police K-9 is here, along with her handler, Constable Clinton Adams, and Metro Police Head Wayne le Roux, and they're talking to us about the recent drug busts and successes that the K-9 unit has had, and partly that Xena is responsible for. Xena is a 7-year-old German Shepherd. She's been with the service since she was a puppy, and she's been working with Clinton for almost 5 years. The two reportedly had an immediate connection when they started training together. Wayne, let's start with you as the head of the unit. Tell us about some of the success stories that you've experienced, and certainly with Xena.
We've got a total of about 20 dogs, so 11 narcotics, 4 explosive, 4 urban manned, that's for missing children, and one copper theft. Now, being a dog handler, it's a special calling. It's a bonding between the handler and like the star, Xena. I'm quite amazed on a daily basis when I see the statistics. To me, it's like common when they go out. We work very closely with, the external role players, and we do various operations, autonomous operations. And I can assure you, most of the time, the successes is there. If we just look at the period between January this year and June, the successes that Xena alone managed to sniff out. And I can tell you there's some awkward places that they managed to sniff out as tick, as drugs, as mandrax tablets, heroin, even a firearm, and as various types of. And over this period, I think she's got that gift of just sniffing it out. And we are very proud of, because at the end of the day, these drugs on the road, it's part of our operation, and people that's abusing drugs, it's a real challenge, especially here in Cape Town, and we focus a lot on the confiscation of drugs and firearm. One firearm or lots of drugs on the road is one too many. So yes, this is part of our interventions, and we try and make a difference with other stakeholders. And our dogs we value because they are part of our assets. Not
enough recognition goes to the success stories and the inroads that you are making in several places across the Western Cape.
Absolutely. I think the credit goes to also the handlers. Metro Police has been now for just close to 21 years in existence. And I think out there we are there to render a service. The dog handlers and our Metro Police, the successes has been there. But we don't work in isolation. We work with traffic, law enforcement. We've got this integrated approach, and of course the South African Police Services. And at the end of the day, we must also not forget the community out there, because we receive numerous complaints and also things that we need to follow up. And the results is there, and we value these type of things is because we cannot allow women and children or our community to be tied up where gang bosses are now using council rental stock houses and various things in order to sell drugs. So we try and go out there in order to make a difference in the community. If Xena patrols and she sits down, that's a sign she managed to sniff out something.
How much work goes into this training between the handler and the dog?
Bonding is key. You need to bond every day. When I started here, I didn't even know there was something called about grooming a dog. You see, that's the skills you learn along the way. So you need to work is a repetition of the repetition of the repetition.
Yeah.
And obviously it will stick to the dog.
Sure. Now tell us about her living conditions. Where does she live, and what does her daily routine entail?
Normally, the way she greets me will determine how we're going to work the day. If she's not in a good mood, maybe she's a bit off that day. It's not a good feeling as well. So I take her out of the kennel. We do bonding. She loves her free runs, and we take it from there.
And does she live at the police depot, or does she live at home with you?
Unfortunately, she can't be with me at home. I do have that option, but she lives at work. But we 12 days at work, 2 days off, so we see each other every day.
Oh, wow. Okay. And does she get a break day from working, even when you're in her company? Are you able to take her to the beach for a run or anything like that?
Yes, mostly every day. You see, after our hard work, we run away quickly without telling our bosses. We go for a walk on the beach. And she enjoys the water. She enjoys her ball. She enjoys the free runs.
Wayne, a question's come in from Jason in Cape Town, who says, do you only use Alsatians in the force?
We tend to use, most of the time we use Alsatians, but we look across, where the greater need is. So when we do put out the tender, we look at, what's available. But Alsatians, the bulk of our dogs is Alsatians. We also have, the missing, for the missing children, there's a special type of dog that we are looking at.
Okay.
Because they seem to have, the gift in order to track down these type of dogs. But we also have donations. Sometimes people donate the dogs, and obviously we have to see if it meets the requirements in order to because these dogs work constantly, and the lifespan of for them is about 8 to 10 years. So we need to know, will they be able to meet the requirements? And you touched on the training. In order for him to bond, it's either a success or a failure. It takes up to 3 months. Some of them do bond within 3 months. Some of them takes a bit longer.
Okay.
But it's all about identifying. You need to be an animal lover in order to make sure that there's a special. And he touched on something that's very important. In the morning, the mood swing on the dog can either make or break that officer at the end of the day, because
Wow.
it's about how we treat him, and they know exactly the condition, how they should go about. Just it's your day-to-day operation. I see quite often when I go out on the ride-alongs with him, they spoil these dogs with the little bolt-on bits and things like that. So they are they look after them, they groom them, they make sure they're the best. We treat them, we give them the best treatment, and obviously make sure that in order to have return of investment, we want to make sure that our dogs get the best out of there.
Stefan sent in a question which was actually on the tip of my tongue to ask, saying, "Hi Amy, I wanted to ask at what age they retire the dogs and what happens to them once the dogs are retired."
We normally keep them between 8 and 10 years old. First option is to offer it to the handlers. Most of them do, but for any other reason they cannot, then we look at other options. The vet will always guide us to see if the dog is in a position to go back to the handlers. It's a sad day when we have to put the dog down for another reason, but we've got also there's the acknowledgement where we acknowledge our dogs. So we make a real we go out of our way to make sure that the dog gets the best send off if he has to be put down. But most of the time, the handlers take, and we do surprise visits to see if they are also looking after the dogs, and they spoil these dogs at home also to make sure that they bond also with their family, because this dog is also part of the family. And we call it the Metro Police family.
Oh, Clinton, tell me, what impact has Xena had on your life?
To be honest with you, I've got more discipline now with dogs in general, especially with my dogs at home. Also, I'm more disciplined. I'm more disciplined when it comes to my family as well, my family life as well. So it's amazing how a dog can actually make that change, as you see. I've got a wife at home. She does it. When I met her, she didn't like dogs at all. But now she can't get enough of to feed the dogs. When are you going for a walk? So she knows my routine already. She asks me how's Xena doing at work. I send her pictures and say, hey, my dog got the positive again. She's like, hey. Even my daughter, also my 13-year-old daughters, they are happy for me, and that's qualities you will treasure forever.
That's so special. Is she your first partner?
She's my first partner, yes.
Oh,
She's
wow.
my first
I wonder what will happen the day that you have to part ways for whatever reason and you get a new partner. It'll be difficult to recreate that bond.
Yes. That day I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it at all, because a dog is becoming so close to your heart, man. You see, even when a dog hurts at work, if somebody... we work in a lot of gang-infested areas. When they shout at your dog, they're making negative comments about your dog. It hurts. You see, it hurts. But yeah, that is something you have to live with.
She's in beautiful condition, Xena, and she's incredibly well behaved. You've been here for almost half an hour now at the station, and she really hasn't made a peep. She's been very happily playing with a rather bedraggled-looking orange ball. Is that her favorite toy?
That's a favorite toy. Yes, she will do anything for this toy. You see, she will do everything for this toy. And after every success we get, whenever she does a search, whether it's a vehicle search or a premises search, open area search, whenever she finds a narcotic, that's a reward.
Really, the orange ball. So now she's allowed to play with her ball so long that she's on her best behavior here at the studio today.
Exactly. I'm spoiling her a bit now.
Wayne, just back to you. You mentioned off air another thing that I thought was really interesting for the listeners to know, and that's that Xena is actually in line for an award of sorts.
Yeah, but 2 years ago we were at the studio, and John Matham, we also had the privilege of seeing one of our other dogs by the name of Savage. Xena's now, also will be receiving a medal. We normally give him a bit of a medal. And it's a special moment because, we have all the dogs lined up. And then Xena will all get the opportunity to come forward and we tie the medal with the handler. And it gives that little fuzzy, nice, warm feeling for the acknowledgement for job well done. And we give also the handler a certificate, just to show that thank you, we appreciate what you've done for the community out there.
Amazing. There is a negative question here on the WhatsApp line, and I am going to address it because I think you should have the opportunity to correct the information if it isn't right. And Sue says, I've watched how these dogs are broken in. Many handlers are not dog people, and the dogs are caged up for hours. I think it is important to address the question because I'm sure many people are under the belief or under the perception that working dogs are not well treated.
Okay, basically every 2 hours the dog should be taken out of the kennels, but I can't talk for every canine handler, but with Metro Police dogs we do that every hour, every chance that we get, we do that. So if that lady come across a vehicle that is, maybe the dog was in the kennel for too long in the heat, she should call 107.
Or she can contact me. I'll give you my email address is wayne.leroux@capetown.gov.za.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, if it's a problem, we need to identify the problem because, we value constructive criticism because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we look after our assets.
Wow, okay. Clinton, what else can you tell me that's interesting about Xena?
What's interesting about Xena, it's just amazing how you wake up every morning knowing that your partner is a dog and how is she going to surprise you today because she have broken many hearts out there, especially with drug dealers. Yeah, she's just something else.
Was it always something that you wanted to do, work with dogs?
This is my calling. I just told the chief now that I'm going nowhere. I'm here at the dog unit to stay.
Follow-up message from Sue. She says, thank you, appreciate it. So I do think that it's valuable that you gave your email address and that if people see the animals being abused, that they can alert you to it because obviously, you do care about your team and your animals and that's not what you want to be hearing about. What is one of the most exciting days that you've had with Xena out in the field?
I think at the end of the day, when I do go do a drive along with Xena and I call it the colleagues, there's 20 of them out there.
Wow.
And the handlers. I normally take a back seat and they show me exactly what's going on there. And I'm amazed to see exactly how these officers do the normal drill, what and the successes. Mm-hmm. And the community, sometimes, most of the times the community also thanking us for making a difference in the conditions that they have to live, and it's also part of our structure called community policing, is building relationships. Mm. But I think the officers on the ground, and I've always said it to people at various platforms, when we go home to put on our pajamas to have a good night's rest, these officers put on their bulletproof vest in order to protect the residents of Cape Town. Wow. And these are the type of things that we really value.
Clinton, we went over some of the things that Xena's managed to sniff out. I mean, unbelievable things. Heroin straws, carrier bags of dagga, tick bankies. I mean, the list goes on and on here that I've got in front of me. I'm interested to know how exactly she gets trained to sniff these things.
You're supposed to ask the instructors.
Oh,
because I'm only the handler. I get a dog fully trained and from there they share their knowledge with me, the skills. So I'm not a trainer, I'm just a handler.
Oh, right. Okay, so the trainer is somebody separate from the handler.
Exactly, yes.
And Wayne, are you able to speak to that training process?
There's a certain process that they undergo in order. They have to identify, they have to smell, they have to actually visual see how a firearm looks and things like and different types of drugs. So when we do our school shows, so we also show the kids, these are the type of drugs that's been identified, that's out in the community. And then they know exactly, where to sniff because it's all about, sniffing it, identifying. And that's part of the training. So the training takes up to about 3 to 4 months before they could eventually identify what type of drugs or if it's a firearm out there, which is first prize.
Sure. And Wayne, where do you get the dogs from? Are they specially bred for the police service or do you accept donations?
Well, beside the donations that we do value, it's also a tender process that we go out in order to make sure that there's certain requirements. So we want a certain type of dog. But obviously we look at, as soon as the dog is maybe given to us to make sure that the dog meets the requirement. I think that's more important. It's not about just giving us a dog and dumping and hope everything of the best because we must be able to make sure that the dog also plays an active role. And we wouldn't just want the dog just to be sitting there and, parting his time. So there are certain criteria that we look at.
Wayne, we've got a voice note for you guys before we let you leave. Let's take a listen.
Hi, I just want to say that a lot of these dogs love to work. And working dogs are generally a lot happier than dogs that are bored and left alone on their own. So I think people should put it in perspective. I know these dogs are well looked after, and I think they're a great asset. My uncle used to have border collies that he trained as sheepdogs, and those dogs lived to work. Thanks. It's Penny in Fishhook.
Penny, thanks for that message. I really appreciate it. And I think you've touched on something that's really important there. And you're right, that working dogs, or dogs that are bred for working, generally do like working. I know my dogs need a lot of human interaction and a lot of exercise on a daily basis. And it's hard work for us. And they would probably be the kind of dogs that would benefit also from being with somebody all day and involved in an activity of sorts. Wayne, would you agree?
You know, sometimes you work with people, and sometimes people tend to have a long, droopy face. But I've never seen a dog like this, you know, all unhappy. And it all depends on the mood. They can sense exactly when the handler's feeling a bit down, because I've seen already them, you know, sniffing next to him or licking him. That shows us that it's a type of communicating with the handler. So, yeah, you know, at the end of the day, people say, you know, your dog's is only an animal. I said, no, it's part of the team. That's important.
Absolutely. Let's quickly go to Heidi in Gardens before we say goodbye. Heidi, good afternoon.
I've got a story to share in that my hubby is a vet in Joburg, and many years ago, I used to work there as well, and many years ago there was a robbery at Standard Bank just at the shopping centre down the road. And unfortunately, the dog was shot, the police dog was shot, and the paramedics, the way everybody stepped in, the paramedics put the dog in the ambulance, brought it down to the vet. And there must have been 30 or 40 police officers that would not leave the veterinary reception area. They stayed until that dog was out of theatre. And the tears and the emotion that was, I mean, it even still makes me quite tearful. But the tears and the emotion that was expressed and experienced by those men, those officers in the reception area was just, it was mind-blowing. So I have deep respect for the working dogs as well as for the handlers and the officers. So yeah, really, thank you for that. Yeah.
Wow, Heidi, you've given me goosebumps. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Wayne?
Yeah, Heidi, I think you brought another tear to my eyes. I mean, at the end of the day, if for any other reason the dogs have to be put off, I can tell you these officers, they refuse to leave. We have to tell them it's time to depart. But even our horses and our handlers, you know, even with our horse riders, they sit in that stable, and then we have to give them the sign it's time to let go. But I think it's what the listeners have said. It's the love that's important, and that's important that we know that they are there and they are special, and we love them to bits.